All right, y'all, what's going on? Glad to be back. Glad to be back. Let's get right into this. Today, we are going to be talking about objective reality versus subjective reality. And in order to do that, let's first break it down, the difference between what an objective truth and an objective or a subjective truth. Let's break down what an objective truth is and what a subjective truth is. All right. So an objective truth is when you can make an assessment of something. It's largely science based because you can measure whatever the object is and then declare what the truth of that is based upon the measurement. Right. So in research, we do this often. In order to determine if something is true or not, we measure it. We do some type of research study. And then when the results come back, the statistic lets us know whether or not it's an absolute truth. And what happens in research is we use significance level from 90 to 95% significance level. And from that, we can determine whether it is that what we're looking for is objectively true or not, right? And a subjective truth, on the contrary, is when the individual determines that something is a particular way based upon their life experience, their perspective or their perception of what it is that they've experienced or observed, and or how they feel about it, right? They give their opinion based upon whether it's just knowledge alone or perhaps wisdom as well. Now, the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because we are in a time which is very fresh right now, still, if you ask me, to where the torch has been passed from the Piscean age to the Aquarius age. So I look at it like a relay race. When the baton is being passed to the next runner, Pisces has passed the baton to the Aquarius sign of the zodiac. And Pisces in this equation represents the subjective truth because it's about feeling. It's about going based upon your intuition, how you feel something is. And a lot of the times what's associated with Pisces also is that the Piscean energy can be influenced based upon that feeling and a belief system. So the Piscean energy could just merely believe in something and that makes it truth. And if they go into detail, or whoever is assessing them in that aspect, they'll, well, how do you know that's true? And the people will be like, well, I just know it is. I just feel it is. Even if they read something, they could be just like, yeah, based upon what I just read, yeah, I know that's the truth. You know what I mean? So now we are at this space in our life where, well, first let me put more emphasis on the Aquarius aspect of it as well, right? So we described what an objective reality is, and the way that it's posed or presented to us is, well, these are the facts, and the facts are irrefutable. They are not to be debated because this is what we found. And it's interesting because, for starters, right, the research would show that, okay, we've surveyed 2,500 people, for an example, right? And based upon those 2,500 people, the data came back saying that, and this is an example, of course, that 2,400 people responded this way. Or we measured that 24 out of 2,500 people felt this way. Or, 2450, right, felt this way. Therefore, that makes this true, right? So this is presented, especially in this day and age, in a way that you can't argue this. And the only way to argue it is scientifically, but not only, well, obviously not, but we'll get to that. But the professional way to do it, if you will, is to argue it scientifically by doing more data, more research to state whatever it is that, like, let's say you have a subjective opinion about an objective reality that was presented to you in a report, and you're like, nah, can't be. And you may even have a personal experience that leads you to say that. Well, now it's time that you actually have to become scientific and explain how that can be. So you got to go do your own research study and your own measurement test, right? And this makes it, I would say, legitimately debatable. So another thing that I left out is that when these reports or these assessments are done, they are to be unbiased. Not all research studies are unbiased, but they should be, if you ask me. And in most cases, they are. But here nor there, right? That's the foundation of what we're going to be discussing here, is the objective truth and the subjective truth, and how I'm even coining it realities instead of just truth, like objective reality and subjective reality, because we are now in a time where an objective truth can be presented and then it actually becomes a reality, because sometimes people market and advertise the finding that they have found. These things are being done to shape policy, shape laws, influence lawmaking, trade, even a lot of things that are involved in economics. And when these things get solidified, then people who disagree with the objective truth, although it is highly measured and proven to be an objective truth, they refuse the reality. These people can be called what? Delusional, right? Sick in the head, not living in reality, and things of that nature. Those names are usually associated with Pisces, right? The Piscean energy. They're in their head. Their head is in the clouds. They're dreaming. They're delusional. They're sick in the head. They're mentally ill, right? So let me note that even when doing research studies, right, there's a thing called the bell curve. I'm really into this because when I was in corporate for market research, I had to do a lot of this. And when I was in college, I had to do statistics class as well. Oh my goodness. But nonetheless, it could be fun, but it all depends. You know what I'm saying? The research part is fun. The finding out the truth or the answer that you're looking for, that part is fun. The process, though, however, very tedious, and you must be focused, and you have to comb through things with a fine tooth. I think I said that right. So what happens here is there's a bell curve, and in the bell curve is shaped like this, like a bell, got a big bell in the middle. But what happens is the tails of this bell are still where answers are being made. Answers are being given, And me still being the skeptic that I am, I still say, well, aren't we supposed to pay attention to the tails of this bell curve, or what we will call outliers? An outlier is something that stands out so far away from the rest of the popular answer that it's either like taboo, like get away from them, or those statistics get ostracized. And a lot of times we'll find this in science and in academia included, that especially when the studies are quantifiable, that the majority of that objective truth is being pushed in the title and the headline, and that article will be published, and those headlines will get pushed. They'll get the push, because whenever you can quantify something with science, economics has a ball with that. The merchants have a ball with that, because now they can pump marketing dollars into that truth and advertise it, and then create products and services based upon those responses. Market research is very influential and very powerful in the world. Again, however, in this day and age, we are at a time where the objective truth will also be argued by a subjective truth, and people will ignore science. They'll ignore scientific data and say, that's not true. And people will be like, well, the scientists, the professionals who have been in academia from 5 to 10 to 15 to 30, 40 years, They've been on this topic hard body and they have discovered these things. How dare you argue that? And how can you argue that when you're not even in the skill, you don't possess the skill set to argue that. You don't even have research of your own to back up what you're saying. Yet, the researchers and the scientific people in the sciences, they are not the only people who have marketing dollars behind them. We have millionaires and billionaires who can also pump their marketing dollars into their subjective truth, right? So this is what we're faced with on a large level in this day and age. And like I said, this is just the tip of the iceberg, if you ask me. The reason I'm saying that is because Aquarius age just really started, if you want to be technical, in comparison to how many more years we've got to go before it fizzles out, before it phases out. So let me bring up an article right now so that we can, get more details into what it is, so it just doesn't sound all heady, right? So I got a conclusion from a report right here that I researched, and I didn't do the actual research, but I just looked it up to get this finding for the sake of this presentation. And it's based upon sex, love, and marriage. And it reads this: sexual desire, though layered with cultural meaning, is ultimately natural. Romantic love, one may argue, is similar, but there is nothing natural about marriage. It is a socially constructed institution through and through. It has no essence or purpose etched in an eternal rock somewhere, and changes as societies and times change, adapting itself to people's needs. Now, this is a good conclusion to bring up, because here we have, and this was statistically proven, right? So here we have this first thing is marriage, right? Which is, when talked about, there's two sides to it, right? It's two sides to the coin. Some people say marriage is good. Others will say marriage is bad. We can take a look into religion and we can see how biblical texts will say marriage is like inevitable, or not inevitable, but it's a definite, it's needed, it's necessary, right? It's requisite, right? So when you look at it from a religious text, it's just like, oh boy, so what if we're in a community and we don't have a family? Does that mean we're not supposed to be alive? Does that mean we can't walk to the farmer's market and get our groceries because everyone's going to be looking at us like we have 10 heads or like we don't belong? See where I'm going with this? And on the other hand of that is, what about the people who say marriage is a hoax? It's false. It's a false reality. It's something that jealous men made up, or you know what I mean, powerful men made up, so that, or jealous men made up so that they can keep their wives submissive and hold that family dynamic in high regard and keep the wheel turning, if you will, right? So there is something to be argued here. Now, when you have statistics, though, research like this, and it'll tell you that sex is natural, a sexual desire is natural, then we have to take into consideration the people who say sex is bad, sex is nasty, sex is disgusting, sex is lust, sex without marriage is lust, and everyone should have discipline and be able to control themselves. And I agree with that, you know what I mean? However, how many encounters have you been in that were sexual, where both of you were at each other like rabbits? You understand what I'm saying? Well, when the chemistry is there and there's consent, this is what I really mean to say. When there's consent from both parties, I say do y'all. You know what I'm saying? Have some great, amazing, ass slapping and grabbing sex. I've said this before I found this study. But anyway, it's natural. It's found to be natural. Romantic love, on the same token, is also found to be natural. It's like you go out to a bar, you see a girl over there, she's fucking gorgeous, right? And you're just like, yo, bartender, order me one of whatever she's drinking and order her another one too. You know what I mean? Because your mind is made up that you want to date, you want to try your luck, you want to gamble. Speculative matters. This is all Leo energy when we're talking about romance, right? So you try your luck and you might hit it off. Y'all have fun together. Y'all might smash and then boom. Whole lot of fun, a whole lot of ass slapping and everything is great, right? You make each other feel good. You had a fun time. You had a good time. Great. Those are natural things. These are natural occurrences. These are things that happen organically. And that's just an example. There's plenty of others that I'm sure you can think of and reflect on anyway at the same time and be like, yeah, that is true. This is something that I didn't even think was going to happen. It just happened. It fell in my lap. She fell in my lap. I fell in hers. You know what I mean? So now this marriage thing, it's true though, right? It's a social construct that was devised, planned, arranged so that two people can unionize and solidify it to where it's now a status symbol. And then whoever holds these status symbols are held in high regard, depending on where you live in the world as well. And then, you know, people are all trying to be power couples and this, that, and the third. And some people are even led into getting married based upon societal pressure, right? So this is where, or a perfect example of where we have an objective reality and a subjective reality. So although, let me make a strong point right here, although this is found as an objective reality, right? There are people in the world who have been through marriages and still are in marriages, and they will tell you time and time over again that they're happy in their marriage. They're glad that they did it. They wouldn't have did it no other way. Sure, times get rough. And that's some people will tell you it's been a smooth sailing from the giddy up, from when they was 18 all the way to their 60, and they still going, you know. There's all types of different stories, but they won't once deny that being married hasn't helped their life tremendously. And of course, one can question, well, how would you know if you've been married all of these years? You've been married since you were 18, 21, 25. And they're just like, I know the type of person I am. I know the type of person I was. I do better when I'm with someone. Once I lock in on someone, I don't need other people. I don't even need to be attracted to other people. I'm not even attracted to other people. Or maybe a superstar, I might say, yeah, in my heyday or something. You know, that's as far as it goes, though. You know, these people don't cheat on each other and things of that nature. So they can get to arguing, right? So, for example, if you look now online on social media, there are tons of shows and podcasts popping up everywhere where people from both sides of relationships are gearing up together and they're talking about what a relationship is, what a relationship is supposed to be, what a man is supposed to be, what a woman is supposed to be, the roles they're supposed to play in relationships, or they don't have to play a role in a relationship that is gender infused. They can swap roles if they want. One could be the breadwinner, the other one could be a stay-at-home dad. You know what I mean? There's no labels that strictly or rigidly defines what and who these people are supposed to be, right? So this is this is a highlight of the Aquarius age, because now we're in the world of the internet, which is ruled by Aquarius, and we have this platform to discuss these things through and through, and no one's really winning these arguments. The only time you can say that a person is winning the argument is when you, the individual viewing it, has a subjective attachment to whatever it is that one or two or three individuals in the room of the podcast are saying, right? You're like, yeah, I agree with her. I agree with her. I agree with him. I ain't fucking with y'all. Y'all lying. That's a lie. You don't know what you're talking about, right? So it becomes very subjective in your own living room. And even during the podcast, you'll see how those different opinions come across. And for the most part, I'll say if we look through how many of these types of shows there are, a lot of them don't use actual academia and scientific research to support their claims. However, like I said, even when you do, there's going to be the outliers, the people who are at the tails of this bell curve who says, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about because we're doing just fine in marriage. We got 3 beautiful kids. They all went to college. They all grown up and they're all doing their thing. whatever they do, but they're telling you their life story. They got no reason to lie, right? Because you got your people out there who say marriage is terrible. I've been married 3 times. I just can't get it right, and fuck marriage. And then you got the MGTOW movement, and they're like, man, fuck that shit, never again. You know what I'm saying? I spent all my goddamn money. This bitch took half. I'm done. Fuck that. I'm doing what I want to do. I want to have fun. I'll go live in a trailer if I have to. Smoke my cigar. Drink my Cavassier. Fuck these bitches. You know what I'm saying? Fuck them kids. Whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's got their subjective opinion, despite what the facts are. So, is it a question that arises is, are we living in a subjective reality or are we living in an objective reality? And as an individual watching this, I'm pretty sure that you're going to say you are living in a subjective reality. I just gather that that's what you'll say. I got strong Virgo characteristics. I'm a large skeptic. However, that's why I value science so much, because once I measure something and I communicate with other scientists who have measured things as well, such as this research suggests, then I'm like, well, oh shit, I better take another look at that. I better take a deeper look at that, because if it's that significant, then there is truth to this. This can't really be denied. However, when I have a personal experience that goes against what I've just found from these researchers, I myself even have to say, well, you know what? It's bullshit for me. Astrology helps, which is also ruled by Aquarius, helps to define and determine, or at least give some clarity into why the individual has a different perception on whatever topic is at hand, right? Everyone's got these natal charts and these different placements of planets, and then when transits occur and they go through their life situations, they come up with different conclusions. And one can make the argument that that particular individual is deciding wrong. Their decisions are wrong. They're making poor decisions. And that may just be true. I was just having a conversation not too long ago about subjective reality and objective reality. And it's like a set of twins, for example. If a set of twins are born and they have the same natal chart, yet live two completely different lives, how do you explain that, right? So you got the science as far as their astrology goes, because their natal charts are the same. And then you got the scientific measurements that measures their life events. And you're like, well, wait a minute. It's a subjective reality for those twins. Shouldn't they both have the same conclusions? And it's like, not necessarily so, based upon their decisions. So you see what we're dealing with right here? Let me pull up another article just to make this more detailed, right? This is about unemployment in marriage. However, it was found that in Greece, female unemployment impacts fertility rate negatively, and male unemployment has a positive effect on fertility rate. For Turkey, modeling shows the opposite relationship. The results of the study suggest that economic uncertainties might be one of the factors contributing to fertility decline in these countries, long-term or in the coming years. So here we have a correlation between unemployment and baby making, right? And you're like, oh shit. So you're trying to say that when people are, or when women are unemployed, right? Here comes the gender argument, right? When women are unemployed, that they're not pumping out babies. And one can argue, I'm pretty sure you can come up for reasons why that is. It's definitely financial and economic. Like, we're not making enough money to have any babies. So I'm not having no kid by you. You ain't got the money to take care of it, or we don't have the money to take care of it. So, her body, you know what I'm saying? She makes the decision of whether she's going to keep it or not if she does get pregnant. You understand what I'm saying? So, but based upon the geographic location, the roles switch. The gender roles switch. So it's just like, okay, when men are unemployed, the fertility rate increases. So what are y'all saying? That all of the drug dealers, all of the bums, all of the, video game players that live with their mom and all that, like, these are the motherfuckers that are pumping out the babies, right? And there can be different factors of why that is, right? Maybe the woman is the breadwinner and she's just like, man, fuck that. I can go find me they could just be like, yo, they just need a dick to ride on to get impregnated and it's whatever after that. You know what I'm saying? The dude don't even got to stay around. They'll take care of the baby on their own. You know what I mean? And then you got women who are together in relationships and they say the same thing. Like, look, you go ride some dick or get inseminated, whatever it is we got to do to get a baby in you. And then we just bounce and we do our thing. You understand what I'm saying? So when we apply this information to those shows and those podcasts that are popping up, you could just be like, yo, man, how can a person say that things are supposed to be that way? It's too inside of a box. It's too rigid, right? And then when people come into power and they take, whether they're taking a headline or that is an objective reality or they're taking a subjective reality based upon how they feel, when people come into power and they exercise their freedom of speech and they push these ideologies, of course the impact is going to be the impact. Whoever is subjectively influenced, and whether they've experienced it on their own or not, sometimes they could just be subjectively influenced, subject to the information, therefore influenced by it, persuaded into believing it for themselves. And only in the long run and time will tell if it happens to be true for them or not. I call it the guru syndrome, you know what I mean? But when these people come into power in the internet, these people can be silenced. They can be attacked. They can be, hate speech turns into Tate speech all of a sudden. You understand what I'm saying? And it's just like, well, wait a minute. If Aquarius represents freedom, and Aquarius represents communications, and Aquarius represents the internet, why are these people being silenced for the things that they are speaking about? Why are they getting flagged, demonetized, banned, shadow banned, etc. from these different platforms? And I'll tell you the reason why. The truth of the matter is this. The people who own these platforms are CEOs and officers of private companies. Therefore, they are not obligated to let everything be open source. So I don't know if you know what open source is. Open source is like code writing that enables other web developers to jump on whatever the foundation of the creation is, the code that's being coded, and they can add in their pieces of code to make it better or just expand it to make it extensive, right? So that's open source. They're not going to be blocked or prevented from doing so. They might have to communicate with whoever, put it up there. But the point of it being open source is so that they have the freedom, is that they have the freedom to exercise their skill set, to exercise their ideas and add it onto the creation, right? When on the contrary, we have these things that are, private companies to where there's rules, there's regulations, there are permissions, there's a chain of command, right? There are visions ruled by Pisces, right? There are visions that are held by the keepers of this entity. And they feel, Pisces, subjective reality, that is not going to be allowed on their platform, right? And then they make the decision of who gets flagged, who gets slowed down in the algorithm, who gets their page taken, and things of that nature. And then it starts up this large frenzy, this large argument, and more headlines and more videos are being created to argue those points and defend themselves and say, look, we can't let them get away with this. What happened to freedom of speech? And then, they might try to bring the government into the conversation and say, well, why isn't government doing this? And it's because the government is ran by these conglomerates. They're ran by these oligarchies and things of that nature, right? And valid. I'm not saying that that's not something. Again, it's a subjective opinion. And some of them is an objective reality as well. It's just like, that is what's taking place, right? But it's funny because you'll hear the argument that, or at least in the United States, that, we the people need to have the government work for us and not the government being ran by corporate entities, right? But it's weird because that's exactly what the same thing that people who say that are asking for, that's exactly what's happening. So let me give you an example. It's like this. If you are a capitalist and you believe in free market enterprising, that means that you believe in entrepreneurs becoming CEOs and officers of companies, corporations. And they get to hire a lot of people, or hire how many other people that they can, right? Giving opportunity for those to become employed and engage in economics in your region, right? So when they are the advisors, or they become the advisors to Congress, and you see them up at Wall Street and stuff like that, shaking hands with everybody that's involved in government, I don't understand the outrage if what you're wanting is for that to occur. Do you get what I'm saying? Am I making that clear? Like, if you want an entrepreneur to come from something to nothing, or whether the money was passed on or whatever, it doesn't really matter. But if you encourage that free market capitalism in your country, and then it happens, and then they are advising government, that means that the government is working for the people. Did I miss something here? If I fucking missed something here, just let me know. You know what I'm saying? But it seems that people forget what they're even fighting for when they say stuff like that, right? They say the government has too much power. The government has too much control. Well, how? It's like this. The government and corporate entities are always going to work hand in hand, because the government sees it like this. Listen, we need... Let me rephrase that. Let me bring it back. The people are going to say, look, we need people to have well-being. In order to have well-being, that means people are going to have to work in some type of way. Whether that's you serve in the community, people are going to have to serve in some type of way. Let me put it that way. You want to volunteer? Sure, knock yourself out. You know, we can get funding for that too, just to give you bags of lunches or whatever the fuck you need. You know what I'm saying? To get that done. We'll find the funding and the people that are needed to have this happen. But we need, in order for people to have well-being on a large scale, we have to interact with one another. And employment is one of those things that is embedded in society in order for that to happen. It's not the only thing, but it's largely needed in a society. So when these companies come up with ideas for people to give service in, and they hire 200 people, they hire 500 people, they hire 1,000 people, it turns to 10,000 people. Is that not a good deed or not? Like, so if these companies don't do this, if these people, these entrepreneurs don't do this, these groups and these networks, also ruled by Aquarius, don't do this, what happens to society is it erodes, because people have too much time on their hands. And when it comes to allocating the resources, really when it comes to the fundamentals, right? Food, clothing, and shelter. As a group society, we have to determine how those resources get distributed, how they get allocated, and it's going to be based upon the measurement of how people are serving society, how people are serving humanity. And if you want to argue that, then you really got to sit down and reflect and say, well, what are you going to do? Right? What gives you merit? What gives you credit, credentials or what qualifies you to be able to participate in the economy at the level that you want to participate in if you're not giving anything to receive? Right? This is the most objective reality, if you ask me. You can't really get subjective when it comes to that point, because you can feel and have an opinion all you want. But if there's only 10 fish found today and there's 50 people, unless you're Jesus, something's got to give, right? Somebody's got to come up with an invention that's going to find more fish, or somebody's going to have to travel and meet somebody way over yonder and make a deal with them overseas to get them fish from overseas over here. So what, we might have to pay them more, give them buttons, coins, whatever the fuck we got to give them in order to get it. But that's part of the trade. That's part of the agreements. That's part of the economy. That's part of a society, right? But when those people fall by the wayside, that is what government is for. To make sure that people don't fall by the wayside when they don't have the connectivity to these entities that are offering these opportunities. And what can you do? Can you play a blame game at that point? The only thing that you can do is say, well, how can we become entrepreneurs too? How can we serve our society by coming up with inventions, new ideas, applying them? If we don't have the resources, finances most of the time, right? How do we get the finances and stuff like that? Or how do we just get the know-how? Sometimes you could start with 5 items. You know what I mean? If you want to sell ties, for example, you don't need $1 million to start selling ties. You know, go get you some ties wholesale as low as they'll let you get the order for. Maybe you need to start with 25 ties. Now ain't gonna cost you $1 million. And then see if you are actually good at selling ties. What if I give you $10 million to go sell ties and you can't even fucking sell ties? You get what I'm saying? Would you supposed to keep the money now? No, I want my fucking money back, right? Pretty sure you feel that way too. So I'm pretty sure I made my point in that thing. You know what I mean? But we're in this day and age now, and the internet is expanding, it's pervading everywhere. And what's happening is, although Aquarius is gregarious, that rhymes, bars, it is also segmented. So that means there's group over here, group. Everybody get a group. You get a group, everybody get fucking groups. Look under your chair, there's groups for everybody, right? So naturally, there's going to be division when that group doesn't have the same ideologies as that group, right? So inside of this large objective reality, which is Aquarius, there are segmented groups, which is subjective realities. This group has their mission statement based upon what they all agree to is their truth versus what this group has over here. So we're seeing more and more of this pop up, and it's like, yeah, the baton is being passed, but just like I said, when the baton was passed before, as the Pisces age came into play, a lot of Aries things and characteristics and behaviors came out of that. The diamond industry ruled by Aries, the CEOs, the mega CEOs, entrepreneurship ruled by Aries. And you can even look at this, right? Catholicism, right? They used warriors to obtain their stronghold of occult knowledge, like the burning of the Library of Alexandria and stuff like that, right? So the Vatican is like the greatest record keepers of the Piscean age. They have it all. All of the stuff that people are talking about, ranging from the Sumerians to whatever you can think of, that's occult knowledge, even astrology. The Vatican has all of that recorded. So what happens is this: when you look at it, the Knights Templar, the conquistadors, the Crusades and all of that was warriors being hired by the spiritual rulers, or the religious rulers, let me say that, because a lot of spiritual rulers were burned at stakes and stuff like that because they were doing magic, But like I said, these religious leaders have all of that knowledge too. They have all of that knowledge too. They can be doing that too. So, and I'm pretty sure a Christian will be upset with me when I talk about this or be offended. But, I get offended too when you offer me to come to the chapel and practice cannibalistic rituals inside of the church in front of everybody, like that's normal, So we're about even when I talk about magic and astrology and shit like that, alchemy and stuff like that. Like, don't be mad, But like I said, we're even if you are. So, we have this, but now if you look today, right, in today's day and age, you got the Pope agreeing and co-signing homosexuality, when in their own book it states that's abomination, right? You have them co-signing and accepting the talk about aliens. They are with us, when that's also supposed to be taboo according to religious texts. Although there is alien life form mentioned there, it's not ever emphasized during a sermon or highlighted as there's other entities other than God. No, it's just God, it's just Jesus, and if not, fuck you. You know what I'm saying? Or you're wrong, you're a liar, you're damned, you're going to hell. And of course we have other religious books not many, but we have other religions to where, and this is what I found interesting about this objective truth and subjective truth as well, is that what if the founding and the writing of these books, the same way that researchers and scientists measure the masses with the surveys to find out these objective truths, what if these books were written knowing that research is done that way, so they know that once those texts reach the masses and the masses read them, that whatever their subjective truths were when writing those scripts, when writing those texts, it will become the masses' objective truth, because now they are privy to the information. Because when we want to talk about God, people say God wrote the religious books. Okay. Can you go knock on God's door right now and show it to me? And I know I sound like an atheist right now, but I need to make my point. If you call God right now and say, God, can you like show me the screenshot when you was writing this beautiful book that everybody fucking loves and says is the truth? 9 times out of 10, probably 10 times out of 10, God's not going to show up. He might send you a divine message, but that might be called magic, and then that would be ostracized. I'm using sarcasm now, but let me not digress. My point is, when this information gets distributed to the masses, it becomes an objective truth for them. They won't even second guess it. They won't question it. And they'll say, God wrote this book. When we all know that the authors of these different religious texts, one will say written by divine hand, and I'm not disputing that totally. Like, you know, who are you to be divine and maybe that person wasn't? Obviously, these people were banded together for a reason, and they had some type of power in order to be able to all agree and have a sound mind on the things that were written. But there were also many texts ostracized out of those books as well. One must question why. Scientists will definitely question why. And now on the internet, we have a lot of cases and shows and podcasts where people are popping up talking about, you know, the Sumerians and, you know, all these different Mary Magdalene and all these other players that were in the Bible when these books were excluded, why they were excluded, what truths they held, what magic was practiced with them, this, that, and the third, right? And like I said, now the forefathers, if you will, of these religious texts are now allowing all of these things to be spoken about. It's interesting, ain't it? And then if the ringleaders of these texts are allowing it, yet the people in the lower rungs, if we can call it that, I'm not saying people are less than or whatever the case may be, but the people who take things so literal, I'll say it that way, they're the ones who are fighting everyone else who had no hand in writing these books, saying, no, the Bible is the absolute truth, and if you go against Jesus Christ, so I fucking kill. Like, people are fucking outrageous out here. Fanatics, right? Religious fanatics. You know? And it's just like, well, wait, nothing else can be the truth? This has to be the whole truth and nothing but the truth is, and so nothing else is the truth. Even science isn't the truth. Like, things that we can measure with instruments, they're not the truth. And this is the war of, because now it's becoming a war. So there are talks of war, to be on that note, right? There are talks of war coming soon. I don't think this war is going to be something that is physically fought at all. I think it's going to be digitally fought, and it's already began. And it's going to be about who can say what, who and where, who can say what. And not only that, but hacking, you know, secret stealing. Because now that we're in Aquarius age, you notice a lot of investigators are popping up everywhere doing their own investigative journalism. It's in a form of investigative journalism. Again, you turn on the internet, you see them all over the place. And I mean, these people from the ghetto and everything, people are investigating everything from rap crimes to, CIA crimes and Central Intelligence crimes and, you know, where's Epstein's list and All of this stuff is being investigated by people who are not licensed, right? Who don't have these state licenses to even practice investigating, right? But so what? Doesn't matter. That's what scientists do. Did you know that you can call yourself a scientist with no degree, no nothing? As long as you do scientific work, you are a scientist. So science is a form of investigation. So why can't these people become investigators, right? It's like DMX got arrested, I heard one time, for like RIP DMX, but he got arrested for impersonating an FBI officer one day or whatever the case may be. That's a Piscean thing, to believe that you actually are something and you can go practice it without having a state license. You know what I'm saying? Who's to tell you that you can't be? Like, I could look at somebody's astrological chart and say, you are a born investigator. You are a born spy. Like, you are a born infiltrator, or you are a born, you were just born to be in the mix and find out people's secrets. Like, it's in your DNA. But a certain other entity is going to tell you that you can't. Something to think about. Now, just like I said, these books, those religious texts, have influenced the masses, right? A subjective truth, a subjective reality by a group of people have impacted millions and made their subjective reality into people's objective reality, right? It's nothing outside this book. Nothing comes outside of my religion. And some people, they come out of it, they wake up, they be like, yo, I had to wake up. I was in a cult, or I was in Judaism and I got out of that. I was in Christianity, I got out of that. Whatever happens, you know what I'm saying? But for the most part, religion is pretty much solidified all over the world. It's very interesting to think about. So now when you see that, and now you have this free fall breakaway society that is forming Voltron on the internet, and they're coming up with their own beliefs, Hollywood starts to look more real, right? Subjective reality doesn't seem so mentally ill anymore. Think about how many movies that have came in, because look, right, Aquarius age produces Pisces constructs and characteristics, right? So Hollywood really became what it is in the last 100 years, last 100 to 200 years, right? Between there, became huge. It's to the point where a lot of those movies are predicting what happens in the real world. And so you have a subjective reality that becomes an objective reality based upon the same functions that happened when these religions were developed. Isn't that interesting? So that means that those people who wrote the religious books aren't the only people who have that power, right? So now it gets even more interesting because of what's going on with the actors now going on strike, right? It's like, well, wait a minute, y'all not going to pay us to make these blockbuster movies that we've been making for y'all and TV shows that we've been making for y'all for all of this time. We made you astoundingly rich, and then this is what you're trying to do to us. You're going to threaten to replace us with AI, and that's supposed to make us bend, break, and fold. Trust me when I tell you, there's going to be more of a free fall breakaway society of actors and film producers and film directors that are going to say, fuck you then. Good luck with that AI shit. Watch us work, Because again, even the Hollywood construct, it's a group of people, smaller than a group of people that watch the movies, smaller than a group of people who even act in the movies, that banded together, pulled their resources and said, this is what it's going to be. This is going to be Hollywood. This is going to be the world of filmmaking. And they influenced and impacted a whole world of people. They're like, you guys are Star Wars fanatics, right? There's nothing else but Star Wars. You can't tell them nothing. They're fanatics. It's the same thing over and over again, just different structures, right? So we're going to see more division. And one thing I could say about the Piscean age was, although all of these things existed, a lot of it was veiled. You see, it was kept from the public, or it was like buried underground and buried in the fucking Vatican, or, just not spoke about much because we only had 13 channels at that time, right? So how would this information get distributed amongst the masses unless you read it in a book? And then some of the books, they only make 5 of them. Like I'm talking about the books. You know, y'all know the books I'm talking about. Those magic books and shit like that. You can't just find them anywhere. Or some collector has them, and if they do sell it, it's going to be for millions of dollars, like it's a painting. Why? It's because some real powerful stuff is in there that's not common, and it's not common on purpose. It's consciously done that way. So we have all of this division now, though, because it's like Pisces, which is the ether, the unseen. The veil's been lifted. Now we're at Aquarius, where the truth is being revealed. Revelation is here, and the book of Revelation is here, and yet people are more divided than ever. You have this verse that, like The View just recently got canceled, right? Because here you have I guess you could call it a podcast, but just a mainstream one. And they had these different opinions, right? Different subjective realities from these different perceptions of these people. It started becoming chaotic and disruptive to the point where it shows that humanity, ruled by Aquarius, is not mature enough to embrace and accept that subjective reality is a thing. That these people are not delusional. They're not mentally ill. I'm not saying mental illness is not a thing. It is. But the mere expression of one's opinion does not make them crazy. You understand what I'm saying? However, when you see these people seated in these shows and these podcasts and stuff, they get irate, they get to arguing, and it's because they can't accept that somebody has a different perception than they do. So if I'm the aliens, I'm looking at this like, look at these fucking humans, you know? It's just as simple as saying, okay, you got your point of view, I got mine. You know the saying goes, agree to disagree. People can't do that. They'll get in your comment section, they'll hate your guts and follow you. And it's just like, this shit is bogged out. This shit is actually getting crazy, and the environment is getting chaotic. Pisces is chaos. The sign Pisces is chaos. And you see it on these shows. And not all of them. Some of these shows really handle themselves well. They have great dialogue. They converse with each other in a way that I find professional. And, you know, they make their points. However, some of them is just a bunch of arguing. And someone has to be right, and don't let them get a crowd in front of them, because now it's about who got the most cheers. You understand what I'm saying? And it's just wild, man. It's just wild. But you know what's interesting as well? This whole thing is interesting. But you know what's deep as well? Is that people argue about this free speech thing, right? Our fucking rights are being taken away. We don't no longer have free speech. This is America, goddammit. And it's like, yo, listen, B. I can open up my window right now, right? And I can scream out, fuck whoever I feel like saying. Whatever name that comes to mind. Whatever religion that comes to mind. No one's going to come. Now, somebody might yell back like, no, fuck you. Or shut the fuck up. And I'm going to be like, I pay fucking bills here. You shut the fuck up. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, that's the most they can do. Right? I might get a ticket for noise pollution or something like that. But I'm not going anywhere. Nothing's going to be done to me. I'm not being arrested for saying that, unless it's hate speech, right? A hate crime, rather, should I say, an act of hate. But other than that, I'm straight. I can do whatever the fuck I want. So what puzzles me about this whole thing is that the internet is becoming an objective reality for a lot of people who have their own subjective realities. Yet they are giving themselves to that objective reality by saying, I don't have free speech no more. I go online, I say this, they flag me, they demonetize me. YouTube is doing this, that, and the third, right? When it's just like, yo, you could just turn that shit off. And you can take it back to the old school. This is good to talk about right now too, because it's Mercury retrograde. You could take it back to the old school and just be like, yo, listen, check this shit out. I'm going to go knock on my neighbor's door. We're going to have a couple of cigars and we just going to chop it up. Ain't nobody stopping the show when we do that. Ain't nobody not running up in there saying, you can't talk about that shit. We're going to take your money. We ain't trying to monetize off of it. We having a conversation, bro. You know, we might even get on the phone, call some of our other peoples up. Like, yo, you want to listen to what we talking about? Put them on speaker. Yeah, matter of fact, call up so-and-so. Put her on speakerphone. And we going to talk about all of this shit. Can't nobody stop us. Ain't nobody gonna pop up at our door. No federal agents gonna pop up at our door like, yo, we heard y'all on the phone, we tapped your phone, y'all can't talk about that shit. So why people are yo, this shit is bugged out. I'm glad I'm speaking this shit out into existence, because that point I really want to make I really want to put out there, because it's like, you don't have to participate. You can get your ass off the internet and go to a local place, a local community. You can start your own private community, right? Your own group, Masons, or whatever you want to do. This is still America. You can do all of that, meet in secret, rent out a conference room, devise plans just like the Bilderberg Group and all the rest of them. You don't have to get on the internet and tell everybody and shout out to the mountaintops of what it is that you got to say. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping that's making an impact when I say that. Let me see if I got any other examples. The Small Town song, right? The Small Town song. I just heard about it. I was just like, here goes another one. You know what I mean? But I finally went to listen to the song, and I'm like, okay, we got a country singer here who is making a record of expressing himself about his subjective reality. You come into a small town, that shit not gonna fly here. I'm telling you, I live here. I know all the people over here. Y'all only doing that shit because y'all up in the city, in those urban environments where the law and the politicians have such a stronghold on you that they will allow the chaos to erupt to a degree where you can either get beat the fuck up, shot, stabbed, killed, and get away with it by the law or by other citizens. And what it's turned into is a headline or a news story or a ploy to bring a new law or policy into existence. Politicians are cashing in off of these ill behaviors, if you will. When the people of the small towns, they're like, yo, look, we basically know each other all around here. You know what I mean? Bill knows Bob, Bob knows Jill, and that's how we doing it over here. We even know the sheriffs and stuff like that. Like, we don't even call a law because we handle matters on our own most of the time. You know what I mean? And if anything, there's more Southern hospitality and stuff like that. So here we got all of these hip hop records that always express their opinions and how their subjective realities, and they put their music out and they do whatever it is they do, right? So I looked at it as like a hip hop record, if you ask me. You know what I'm saying? It's when people make it political and they turn it into political things. And sure, many of these artists, or some of them, may have political intent when they do make their creations, and if they do, that's up to them. You know, I hear that's an argument too now. That's the new thing now too with Hollywood. Oh, they're inserting this political ideology or narrative into the films to where they're trying to influence the mind of the young. Well, of course, it's a subjective reality. If that's what the director, the writers, and the producers felt like doing, that's what they felt like doing. Is creation, is creativity, and that is why creation is the most powerful thing on this planet, because it's yours to create. You know, people can argue it outside of you all that they want. It's still your creation. They just got to deal with it. Fact of the matter is, they don't have to live your subjective truth as a creator, your subjective reality as a creator. They can just shut you off. They can stop following you. They cannot watch the movie. They cannot listen to the song. You understand what I'm saying? They cannot watch the news. It's that simple. But what is it called? Social justice warriors. They get online, they go crazy, they go bananas, they go nuts. And then they even want to bring it into politics and say, well, we need this law infused. We got to put rap lyrics into the courtroom now. We got to, and I'm not here to say which is right and which is wrong. It's not what I'm here to do. I'm just here to explain this in a way that's, you know, inquisitive, curious, informative, and forward thinking as well. Because it's a lot of war. We got the WHO, you know, they're dictating what, they're recognizing and approving what is safe, effective, and it's against holistic remedies. You understand what I'm saying? So it's just like, what do you do as a people when they're, again, a group of people banding together with their subjective reality, their intent to push some agenda, and they're trying to make it an objective truth for humanity, for the masses. What do? You gotta fight back. It's like you gotta choose a group. You gotta fall into a group. I've said this before, you gotta choose a side. It's gonna be a time in your life where you gotta choose a side. It's so many sides now that you gotta choose from that, well, put it this way, you got options. But let's just say that. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying you have to be a part of a whole lot of different groups, but the more that this war continues, you're going to see how, oh, well, damn, that group is siding with that group, which sided with that group. So that means I can't be X, Y, and Z. I got to be A, B, and C. Man, C better not fall off the wagon and join the bricks. You understand what I'm saying? Like, how the fuck I'm going to really be sure that they're going to stay loyal to this thing that we put together? You know what I mean? How I know they ain't going to switch sides? It's the Aquarius age. Unpredictability is always in the air. Opportunists are everywhere. So people will jump ship for the opportunity, right? The loyalty, the belief system is dissipating. It was strong in Piscean age. You just always knew you were going to get home at night after drinking 20,000 beers. You just knew it. It was just something you knew. It was the magic of Pisces. It was there. But now everything is so real and in your face that you question it. Like, man, I don't know, right? You see more and more podcasts of more wars. I just want to discuss more wars. You see, like, for instance, you see wrestlers getting on the podcast and they're like telling all of the backstories from the different federations of who this one fought in real life and who that one killed and who that one fucked. And you're just like, man, Hulk Hogan did all of that? What the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, why are y'all doing that to each other? Not only that, you got friends who are friends for long times falling out with each other, and then they're getting on these podcasts and they're like, well, let me tell you what happened. We was cool. Wasn't y'all cool from the sandbox? Yeah, but let me tell you what happened. I was fucking her, then, you know what I mean? I went to jail and then niggas forgot about me, son. Now I feel some kind of way. I come home, niggas all on my dick now, and then plus by my single, it just is coming out tomorrow. Like, what the fuck is going on? You even got, and I'm not saying this is wrong, but you got the whistleblowers in the intelligence agencies as well. You got your Snowdens, you got your CIA officers, retired now, coming out and telling stories. And it's like, what the fuck? You would never think, right? But it's like, yo, this internet and this Aquarius stuff is getting people to, and not for nothing, there's pros and there's cons with this, right? Because before, there wasn't the freedom to get your point across, to get your word out. Like I said, I could open a window and I could shout out whatever it is that I subjectively feel right now. It's just going to make me feel good, but it might not totally fulfill me because maybe I grew up a nerd. Maybe I wasn't liked in class as a kid. Maybe I wasn't popular with the popular crew, right? I wasn't at the lunch table with them, so I never really got to express my opinion to the point where I was taken seriously. So opening up this window and shouting out today is not gonna satisfy me. But now that I got the internet, I think I got a better chance now, right? I'm just saying this is an example. It's not actually me. If it was me, I'd have told you the truth anyway. But I got a chance now because I know there's other people speaking like this nerd who perhaps, you know, now I know there's people out there in the world like me. They just don't get the voice because they're not popular, right? They're not badass. They're not murdering shit like, you know, like Bruce Willis or something. You know what I'm saying? It's not a Die Hard movie, so nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit. But now with the internet, I can start a channel right now. If I get 450 subscribers based upon the nerdy shit that I got to say, or whatever it is that I feel uncomfortable about, that I feel society is wrong about, that's 450 people I've won over who now shares my ideology and we now have a voice, right? So that's a pro, because now you just can't use popular opinion. Look at all of the entertainers and the celebrities and stuff. They're going through a lot. I'm not going to get the naming them and all that. I think I might be here for the rest of the night. But they're all going through a whole bunch of shit. And while this is occurring, you have people on the internet gaining more traction. These are just your regular average small Joes, you know? They're building and they're not, a lot of them are not financed by people. They're not financed by other entities. A lot of them are not taking sponsorship deals and stuff like that. They're just organically growing, doing their own thing. So it's just like the playing field for who's a celebrity and who's not. Celebrity means, the word celebrate is in celebrity. You know what I mean? So you celebrating that person for why? You know what I mean? Or you just a NPC, right? Or you just a follower, a trend follower. You know what I mean? And again, if you are what you are, an NPC word was just brought to my attention not too long ago. I'm like, what the fuck is an NPC? I keep hearing and seeing that word everywhere. Then I looked it up and I found out. I was like, oh shit. And then I watched Matrix, what was that, Reloaded? And I'm like, oh shit, when they got the like swarm trick that the dude did, the architect did, it's like bots. Like people really will switch on you in a heartbeat. Like I said, in Aquarius age, opportunists, they see the opportunity. Somebody might trigger them Manchurian Candidate type shit, and next thing you know, they at your head. Or they jump off of a building, hurt themselves. They fuck hurting you, they hurt themselves. You're like, yo, what the fuck is going on out here? NPCs, I guess that shit is an objective reality as well. Maybe people are here just to feel good or do whatever they want to do. They don't have structure, discipline, goals, and stuff like that. They just want to live life. And who am I to say it's fucking wrong? You know what I mean? But for those of us who are here and have these, believe that we're driven and we're destined and we have these purposes for being here, there are a lot of people out here that don't possess that. And you're like, oh shit, guess you're a fucking NPC then, right? But back to my point, I feel like I digressed a little bit. Everyone has a voice now. So that's a pro. Because you can't just push the narrative because you have marketing dollars. Sure, there's suppression going on, so I've heard. So where they will silence your channel. They take subscribers off your channel. You be like, yo, I could have sworn they just took 10 subscribers from me? How is that happening? Or did 10 people actually unsubscribe? Because you got YouTubers out there asking at people, yo, did you unsubscribe from me? Yeah, no? Well, you got to subscribe back. Somebody unsubscribed you. Who the fuck could have did that? Right? So, yeah, you got some suppression going on and stuff like that. But guess what happens when that happens? I'm not gonna totally tell because I feel like I'm gonna be revealing a secret. It's too early to do that. But I'm gonna just say this: take it back to the old school. You could take it back to the old school. You don't gotta fight and play the internet game because you notice there are a few entities now that are popping up and say, well, you gotta pay to play now. And it's kind of always been like that with the advertising dollars and stuff like that. But, you know, if you want to be seen, you got to pay to be seen. All that organic shit, the algorithm does not support that. So I've heard. But anyway, vaxxed or not vaxxed, right? It's another war. You know what I mean? Got people turning on each other, family members and everything. Don't come over here if you ain't got your card. And you're like, oh, word? Well, check this out. I ain't coming at all. How about that? Fuck you. Fuck everybody in that house who got, you know what I mean? Shit, fucked out. We'll talk about this at another time. I'll probably title it something different and go more into detail into a particular sector of what I've just spoken about. But this is just putting more light on the Aquarius age. I've done a few Aquarius age videos on YouTube to where I've only scratched the surface about what I'm talking about now. So it's like a progressive thing that's happening here with this topic. But let me know what you think about it. You know, you can comment and let me know. Do you live more of a subjective reality or a subjective reality? And when you do come across objective realities, how do you feel when you fall in the category of that objective truth? And how do you feel when you fall in a category of another topic in the subjective truth as an outlier on the tails of the bell curve? Do you feel like you don't belong in society? Do you feel alone? Do you feel like you should isolate based upon that because of the consequences and the repercussions you could potentially face based upon where you stand, what group you side with, right? Do you even talk about these things in the public? Because maybe you don't. Maybe you only have these discussions in private because you know what's at hand. You know what's going on. You know what's going on is what I'm actually talking about right here. So I'd like to know. You know what I mean? All right. Till next time. I'm out.